you know, they broke the 4-minute mile years ago. So.
Oh, yeah.
That note I made
But
in here about you.
my point was world champions. That a 5-minute mile is nothing for a world champion.
I put it in
But
my birthday
for the
card.
common people, how many people in America could
You
run
have
a
to go into
5-minute
training
mile?
for that. You have
Even
to
in
train.
basic, yeah, we had like 2 Native American gentlemen, they were
You don't remember
fast.
anything.
But even the best time that they did, it was like 5:45, like shy of 6.
I had a kid that I went to seminary with, Jay Smith. Jay Smith grew up in the Himalayas at about 5,000 feet elevation. Was up in the high mountains a lot, where the air is a lot thinner, 10, 12,000 feet elevation. He set the all-time record for the Marine obstacle course when he took Marine training. At that time, now that would have been back in the 70s, I'm sure it's been broken since then. But Jay Smith ran a double marathon.
What's that?
One and back.
Double marathon.
Did a
26 and
marathon
26.
52.
52.4 miles.
Oh my goodness gracious.
The first 26, you ran up a cliff, and then you ran cross-country through a forest, jumping over creeks, jumping over logs. Then you ran down the cliff, came onto a path, and ran back on a flat path along the Potomac River all the way back.
Very cross country.
He broke 6-minute miles for the entire thing.
Wow.
That's
He
insane.
was like 5:45, 5:50 for the entire 52.4 miles.
That's crazy.
He would sit around all, and you talk about training, he would sit around all winter and not lift a finger. He wouldn't walk further than the class across the driveway.
Wow.
First warm day of spring, he'd show up. I'm out there every day biking, running, swimming. He'd show up the first full day of spring. He'd go, let's go for a run. I am running all out, as fast as I could run. And he's running beside me like this. Right around me, literally around me, running backwards half the time.
Come on, Jenkins,
Rubbing
go.
it
And I'm going, you're insane.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned about a 600
But my point was, if God set a standard that a few people could make,
Yeah.
but the most of us couldn't, then we would have every right to complain and say,
Yeah.
I'm out.
Mhm.
Anybody who hasn't spoken to thousands of people about Christ, you're out. Well, Billy Graham's in.
Yeah.
Do you know who Billy Graham said led the most people to Christ in the modern era? Anybody know the name? He said way more than I have.
Somebody famous, like
If you're in the right circles.
Billy Sunday.
Nope,
It was a lady, wasn't it?
nope. Dawson Troutman, founder of the Navigators. He said, because you've not just gone out and added people to the kingdom. You've gone out and made disciples who multiplied. And Billy Graham says, I've never been in a city anywhere in the world where I haven't met navigators.
Generational impacts.
For
Are
the
they
good.
big now or not that?
Not like they were.
He started them?
He founded them in right before World War II, in the 1930s. And again, here's a story of how being small can change the world. In 1937, something like that, he was a worker, he was a laborer in the shipyards in San Diego. And he put a notice up on the bulletin board for the San Diego Naval Yard that said, any sailor who's homesick and would like a home-cooked meal, come to this address at 6 o'clock on any day. And he said he never sat down. He had his wife and a small child and himself, and then a second child. And He said, we never sat down without 10 to 12 to 15 guys around that table.
Wow.
And he led those guys to Christ. And he taught them to lead people to Christ and disciple them, and they went back and started a NAV Bible study on their ship. And then people got transferred, and they started a NAV Bible study on the new ships.
Are you talking about navigators?
Yep.
History? Okay.
By the time World War II started, for us 4 or 5 years later, there was a navigator Bible study leading people to Christ on every single ship in the United States Navy. And he and a buddy, who founded the Navigators together, decided that they really wanted to see what God wanted them to do. So they committed to 2 hours of going up to a cave that was up a mile or two from their house. Driving up to this cave, wasn't, some tourist cave. It was just a hole in the ground that went in, old mine or something, and go in there and pray every morning for 2 hours from 4 in the morning till 6 before they went to work. So they get up and they go up there and they started praying, and one of them felt led to bring in a map. And they started praying for each of the states in the United States. And they would pray over that state until they led somebody to Christ from that state. And within a year they had, because they're right by the naval yard, they were exposed to people from all across the country. Within a year to 2 years, they had led a person to Christ from every state in the United States. So they said that's not good enough. So they brought in a globe. And they would spin the globe and put their finger down and pray for nations that their fingers fell on the globe. And the one that he remembered was the island of Formosa. Japanese island where Okinawa is. And they prayed that they would lead someone to Christ on Formosa and Okinawa, those 2 islands. At the end of World War II, the United States established a military base on Okinawa. We still have it today. Most of the guys on the American ships would get off, they'd go into town, they'd visit the Japanese brothels and carry on with the Japanese women. They'd go in and they'd get drunk and they'd do bar fights. But there was a handful of guys on every one of those ships that would go in and talk to people about Jesus. By 1947 or 1948, he was standing on the island of Okinawa, addressing a room full of 100 house pastors who were pastoring churches on that island, every one of which who had been led to Christ by navigators that he led to Christ. Teaching them how they could turn around and train their people to be that way. And so when Billy Graham started to become international and went from having a crusade in Los Angeles or a crusade to having worldwide crusades on several a year, he went to Dawson Troutman and said, how can I really make a difference in the world and not just numbers on a page? And he gave him 3 of the top navigators. His closest lieutenants said, you go work for him. We'll get by without you. And they're the ones that developed the entire discipleship program for Billy Graham that then became the one that Franklin Graham, all of our kids did last year, 2 years ago, the
Greatest story ever told.
The Greatest Story Ever Told discipleship booklet that goes out in the Christmas boxes. That was all developed out of the navigator influence of these guys that taught them how to do stuff like that. Anybody here taking the Billy Graham training event for counselors to go forward and counsel the Billy Graham Crusade?
Maybe.
Did you do the one for, what's his name, out in California? Harvest Crusade.
Greg
Oh,
Laurie.
Greg Laurie.
Greg Laurie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, something.
Greg Laurie's patterned his after Billy Graham. That whole training thing for training people to lead people to Christ in a private conversation at the end of the, was all developed by the Navigators. He didn't have a theology degree, didn't go to Bible school. He learned his Bible by being discipled by somebody like we're doing right here. He put a little notice up on a bulletin board and changed the world. When I was in Philadelphia, my first year I didn't have to work at a church. My second and third year in seminary, you had to intern at a church. So that year was free, so I went to J.M. Boyce's back when he was still with us, 10th Presbyterian for that year. 10th Presbyterian said, look where we are. We're in the middle of downtown Philadelphia. What's the huge problem 10th Presbyterian had that's probably killing them by now? They have zero parking. They literally are sitting on a corner of a street in Center City, Philadelphia. You couldn't park 30 cars.
Capital One has an office there that I could go to work to, but I completely skip it and drive to Wilmington because of that. It's ridiculous over there.
Yeah. And yes, they got deals with every parking lot they could have, but still, there's no parking there. So they said, how can we possibly run a church here? They said, let's send missionaries around the world. Somebody said, why? Why? If we want to evangelize the world, what's the best way to do it?
Start where you're at.
Backyard. Mm-hmm.
Evangelize the leaders of foreign countries. What do leaders in foreign countries do? I don't care if it's Asia, Africa, South America, Australia. What do?
They look at American culture.
They send their kids to colleges in England or the United States because English is the primary business language of the world. They want their kids to get a British or American education. If you come to America for an education, where do you go to schools like?
Harvard.
Depends on your reason.
Penn,
Harvard.
Harvard up there, but Penn, Drexel,
Oh, in Philly, you mean?
all these huge universities in Phillies that are 10 blocks from
Chance Press.
10th Presbyterian Church. If we want to evangelize the world, what are we going to do?
Get the students.
Evangelize those students from foreign countries, because when they go back, they have automatic access to the most powerful people in the country. A missionary could go there their entire life and never be accepted. They're going back as the creme de la creme of that society. So what did they do? We're going to have international dinner nights twice a month, where we're going to have authentic food from
Whatever country.
Cambodia, Laos, South America, Africa. So what do people there from those countries say? Hey, let's go and get that. And they meet other people that have an interest in their culture. Now, they might not have an interest in Christ at that point,
Building relationships.
Yep.
Yeah.
but they're interested in sharing their culture and remembering their culture and experiencing,
It feels like home.
yeah, a little bit of homesickness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they made sure that they evangelized and trained the people that were at those meetings who were part of 10th Press. So it wasn't just sitting there talking about the culture, it was bringing Christ into that.
Is that what they did back when you were there?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, do they still do that?
I haven't kept,
Yeah.
but that was,
Wow.
so were they sending missionaries? Absolutely, and they supported me. But their main missionary outthrust was reach the people who are sitting right here that are going to be going back there.
Right.
And again, Most of us can't go to some foreign country.
Even if we do, we're not accepted like them.
Yeah.
They're nationals.
But what can we do right? Because see, that's the common theme. What can we do right here to impact people right here on a one-on-one or small group setting? Not what can we do to build a big church? What can we do to disciple someone?
Teach.
And that's the answer that individually we have to come up with. Where can I get a pool of a person or more than one person who might have the kind of interest in becoming a disciple? And that's exactly what 2 Timothy 2:2 is all about. I was talking to somebody today that was kind of cutting ties. I believe, maybe not, but certainly how I read it. There are two relationships, and I know Louise has heard this 100 times, but there are two relationships that you have to maintain if you want to be a productive believer. What are they?
I don't know if this is where you're going, but I remember in youth group you would say, who's your Paul and who's your Timothy?
A Paul and a Timothy. What are the two verses? And they're really easy to remember because they're
2:2, right?
2:2.
2 Peter 2:2.
No,
Oh.
2 Timothy.
That's what I
2
meant.
Timothy
That's what I
2:2.
meant.
And what's the other one? And it's not New Testament. Now you've reduced it a lot because there aren't that many twos in the Old Testament.
It's either Chronicles or Samuel. I'm trying to think.
Nope.
Kings.
2 Kings
Oh, yeah.
2:2.
I took a
So
shot.
here's how you remember it. 2 Timothy 2:2 and 2
King.
Kingothy
Oh,
2:2.
yeah.
2 Kingothy 2:2, 2 Timothy 2:2. What's 2 Kingothy 2:2 with a K?
Uh, 2 Kings 2:2.
Yep.
Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here. The Lord has sent me to Bethel." But Elisha said, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel.
You need to commit that kind of commitment to a mentor. Who's your mentor? Who's your Paul? Who's your Elijah? Elijah says, you don't need to bother. And Elisha said, no way, man. You're going, I'm going.
Kind of makes me think of Ruth, too. Where Ruth says to Naomi, I know it's a different relationship,
Yep.
but commitment.
Yep. Mark took a big spiritual detour in his life. Why?
He petered out.
Because he wasn't faithful to Paul, who was then his, Paul says he abandoned us. Nope, he doesn't, no, he's not going to come. He hasn't earned his way back from that. He eventually did, but that was a detour in Mark's life. He made up for it. How did he make up for it? Well, he proved faithful to a new mentor.
Barnabas.
First Barnabas, and then who was his final mentor?
Silas?
No.
That was Paul.
Peter.
Peter. And he ends up writing, what did Mark write?
Mark. The Gospel.
The Gospel of Mark, which is
Peter's testimony.
Peter's testimony. He became faithful enough to Peter that Peter entrusted him to write the Holy Spirit story of Peter. The gospel that Peter witnessed. So that having that mentor, somebody that you are accountable to. And I watch so many people who come to churches and never really spiritually grow because they never lock into being trained as a mentee. They don't form the kind of relationships where you can ask questions and get answers and really deal with issues. And then they wonder why they're not growing and they move to a new church. And they get to the new church and what happens?
Same thing.
Nothing.
Same thing.
Are you talking about a one-on-one mentor kind of, or like,
Does it have to be one-on-one?
no, not necessarily, but
Did Jesus ever mentor someone one-on-one?
no,
How did Jesus mentor?
a group, small
Group
group.
settings.
12 apostles.
Yeah, 12. I read a paper by a psychologist years and years ago that said Jesus was absolutely automatically following what we've discovered is the principle now. He said, you cannot have a mentor relationship with more than 12 people. That is the absolute human maximum as far as we're aware. Anything over that, you can't get the individualized attention and recognition of whether you're growing or not. Because there just isn't enough time in the day to spread between that many people.
Can I ask a question about something you said out there? I just
Sure.
didn't, I just wanted to clarify it. You were saying about set your mind and heart on the things above. First of all, that was in
Colossians 3, 1-3.
3, 1-3, and you also used two, not analogies, but you used two other words, like for mind and heart. You said, do you
Thinking and emotion.
think that's what it was, thinking and emotion?
Yeah,
Thinking would be the
Thoughts,
mind,
thoughts.
emotions, the heart, right?
yeah. And again, is the Bible being literal there?
No.
When it says set your heart on, are emotions really from the heart?
No. That's just that word that they used back then.
Well, and we still use it today.
Yeah.
Why do we say from the heart?
It's your emotion, your feeling, your love,
But why?
because it's the essential, if that doesn't.
Because when you
Visceral
feel
effects.
something different, what happens?
You know, like that visceral effect?
You get a feeling in your chest tightens, or you feel this, because
Something wells up.
literally, your heart can begin to beat faster because your body pumps adrenaline in your heartbeat. So your heart feels like it is responding to emotion. So therefore, we speak of from the heart. My heart being in my throat. You know, when you propose to the person you hope to marry, or when you're waiting for a proposal that you hope is coming, how do you feel? There's this heaviness in your chest. You don't feel it up here, you feel it here. So we associate that with feeling.
Got it.
But does the heart really feel anything?
No.
What's the heart?
It's deceptive.
The muscle.
Yeah, it's a muscle. It's a giant group of muscles. Do you know, if every muscle in your body was as strong as your heart, do you know what you would be able to do?
Be an ant.
Rebuilding to the
10
same
times as
amount?
big.
Pretty much. You would be able to lift a car totally off the ground.
Wow, which is why some people can,
Yeah,
when they're adrenaline.
with the
Oh, yeah.
adrenaline. But literally, you could lift about, if every muscle in your body was as dense and strong as the heart, you could lift about 4,000 pounds.
Wow.
Oh, pretty cool thing. God,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The heart is an amazing muscle. But we know that physiologically, where our emotions and thinking,
In the brain.
in the
yeah,
brain.
it's all in the brain. But the Bible isn't being dishonest, it is simply being metaphoric.
Sure.
Anyway, does that answer?
That's perfect. Yeah, I just.
Let's look at 2 Timothy 2:2. What are the last two books that Paul writes? What are the last two books that Paul writes?
Timothy, 1 and 2.
Is that two books, or are you asking me a question?
Tim, one first Tim, second Tim.
No.
I took a shot. Tim.
Yep, you were close.
Must be starts with a T.
It
It's the
starts
one
with a
word
T.
Titus.
He says
Titus and
Philemon? No, I don't know.
yeah, I said you were very close to right when you said
Second
both of
Timothy.
them. And Second Timothy. Titus and Second Timothy
Oh, okay.
are his last two books. So who are the people that Paul entrusted his ministry to the most?
His
Titus
sons,
and Timothy.
Titus and Timothy.
Titus and Timothy.
The T's.
Why did he entrust his ministry at the very end to these two men?
They were faithful.
Faithful disciples.
Faithful to
Yeah,
God.
because they had continued in that mentor relationship right up until the end. Other people had come and gone, and he lists in 2 Timothy, Philemon left me, this person abandoned me, that person's gone.
How about those other two guys you mentioned?
Yeah.
Homogeneous or somebody? Or,
Yeah, Hermione,
Biologists.
James,
And find
and,
somebody.
Philologist or something.
yeah.
I just like their names.
They took off, Timothy and Titus. And so Paul says, I'm not going to be, Titus, I left you to do this. Timothy, I let you to do this. Ball's in your court now, guys. So what does he say to Timothy? And he gives that principle, 2 Timothy 2:2. And I was not smart enough to come up with that 2 Kingothy. That was navigators, entirely navigators.
And the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses and
What relationship is that?
He's saying it, so it's a close relationship.
What's
Mentor.
Yes, that's the mentor relationship. What gives Timothy the right for the rest of the verse? The fact that he has had that mentor relationship with Paul. How many times has he heard Paul? He's heard Paul preach 3 times, right?
Sure, more than
No.
A lot more.
A lot more than that. He's heard Paul preach over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And did he get bored and wander off? No, he stuck around, listening. Just a real quick thing. What are the 3 steps of listening whenever you're listening to spiritual teaching?
Oh, are you talking about to make sure you understand it?
Well, first of all, to be exposed to it. The first time you hear something, it's being exposed to it.
Right, you listen for yourself and you listen for somebody else.
The second time is
For you,
to master it for yourself.
and then teach it to someone else.
The third one is so that you are fluent with teaching it to someone else. So the first time you are looking for, the first time you hear something, you're looking for facts. What's that reference? What's that word? What's that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Just the facts.
The meaning. Okay.
The second time you're listening for, when you're trying to then grasp it for yourself, you're listening for the application or the interpretation. How does this apply to me? How does this apply to people? I see what it says in the Bible. What does that mean in my life? So you're looking for practical application of it. The third time you listen, or the third step of listening, usually it takes a couple, each of those, when I say 3, each of those 3 take multiple listening. You probably have to listen the first time before you really get the facts 2 or 3 times, probably 4 or 5 more times before you really understand how to apply it, and then a bunch more. What are you listening for the third step in that?
How you can explain it to someone else.
Teaching.
How you can explain it to someone else And specifically, what are you looking for then?
Discipleship
Do they
type
grasp
thing.
How to illustrate it. Illustrations. And most of the people that I watch, what they learn is they learn the facts, and then a much smaller percentage learns the application. But very few people learn the illustrations. Half of the illustrations that I give, I learned in the first 5 months I was a believer. Literally.
Is that from being mentored? That your mentor taught you that?
Because Charles Stewart, who was trained in the Navy by the navigators, picked up the illustrations that the navigators all taught, who goes back to the original navigators like Lawrence Sanney and Dawson Troutman, that they had developed and then were perfected through all those generations, and Charles Stewart taught them to me.
Why don't you do a navigator's course here?
I really am. I'm just not marketing.
He's doing it
as
and he's
that.
not calling
Yeah,
it that. Yeah.
the chair thing and the hand thing, that's all
Yeah,
navigators.
yeah, that's all navigator stuff.
Okay.
The Christian wheel. Now I modified
That's
it
what I
because
meant.
I think the
Added,
navigators
yeah.
really missed something. They had a 4-spoke wheel, and because they had a blindness, part of it was cultural. People were so invested in church in that day that you didn't really, that was kind of taken for granted. Today, people are not invested in church. You need to really, so you need to talk about the 5 spokes, not the 4. But then another third of the illustrations I give are ones that the original thing was in the navigators, and I've mutated it or modified it over the years as our culture has shifted to make it relevant to people today, when it might not have been, they wouldn't understand the illustration from 50 years ago.
Sure.
And then the rest are ones that I picked up from other points or just observed things myself and said, there's a good illustration of that.
You called this 3 steps of listening for
Spiritual truth.
spiritual truth.
So it started with Timothy. How did it start?
Well, Paul.
Started with Timothy showing up, listening to Paul. And at first, I'm sure he was just, wow, this is all new to me. But then once that wore off, it's, how can I apply this? Yeah, how could my friends apply it? But my friends aren't getting it. I try to tell them what Paul's teaching me, and they're not understanding it. And then he would go back and go, that's how Paul's explaining it to people. That's the illustrations he's using. And then you start using that with your people and they go, and the light comes on. Now sometimes you have to modify it a little bit.
Just given like a blueprint on discipleship
Yeah.
and
And
goals.
that's the disciple. But see, it started with him going through that process. And it took time. That's why he says, the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses. This is something over and over and over again. You watch me do this with Bob. You watch me do this with Tim. You watch me do this with Mike. And you saw that I used the same principles with each of them because that's what works.
So it's repetitious.
Yes.
I have a really cool story about that.
So then what's he say to do? And then please do that.
Entrust to reliable men.
Entrust to reliable or faithful men.
Who will
Depending-
also be qualified to teach others.
So what's the qualification for being reliable in God's eyes?
Able to teach it to others.
That you do exactly what Timothy did. People who will then turn around. So here's my principle, and then go ahead with your story. If no one can come to Christ except God draws him, what should be the prayer that we pray on a daily, if not multiple daily,
Conviction.
multiple times a day thing?
Conviction.
God will show people.
Find people who are drawn.
The Lord's Prayer.
a little bit more specific.
That God would bring us the people.
Not, you're missing the point. Who does God want us to invest in?
Those that he's drawn near.
Those that we can multiply, that'll teach.
Reliable, he says, Timothy, where should you
reliable
spend
men.
your time? With
Yeah.
reliable men who will teach others. So what should our prayer be?
Show me a reliable man.
Lord, draw into my influence where I can impact them, reliable man, reliable woman, who I can train to serve you. And I don't think, and see, we don't pray that specifically. And when we just pray for people, well, if I get a dozen people that seem to be drawn, but they never go anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I have 2 children. My daughter and her husband have been facing the issue that some of you here have faced with your children, of not being able to have a child. My son, because of his lifestyle up until very recently, was not in a position to have children. I produced children. But my line is going to go extinct unless my brother, my only brother, has 1 daughter. So unless something changes, how many Jenkinses will there be in the next generation beyond my children and his daughter?
0.
0.
0. So, again, it's not enough that we would say, oh, I'm going to lead a person to Christ. We want to lead a person to Christ who will lead another person to Christ, who will lead another person to Christ.
Can you go over this a little bit on Tuesday too?
Sure.
The reliable men part.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So our prayer, if God says to pray specifically for things, and he does, right? What we really should be praying for is not just people. It's reliable. People who will qualify as reliable people.
Good one.
Because one reliable person is worth
A lot more.
1,000
Unreliable.
unreliable Christians. Because 1,000 non-reliable Christians, how much will they produce? 0. So, okay, you've got 1,000 in this generation, woohoo! And the next generation you've got,
0.
I think it's the difference between multiplication and addition.
it entirely is.
Yeah.
And that's why Billy Graham, in the end, Billy Graham was not that successful, at least in the United States. Because even if you give that everyone that went forward was actually saved, which I think is a huge and irresponsible gift, you had tens of thousands in this next generation. And how many down here?
Yeah. Look for the multipliers.
So again, that's why Billy Graham would say Dawson Troutman led more people to Christ than anybody in the world, not me. Go ahead, Joy.
So I was listening to a sermon this morning. It was John MacArthur from 1969 because I wanted to hear if he was consistent, and he
Yeah.
was. And he was preaching about this gentleman who newly married, just graduated from seminary, and God called him to go to this community of cannibals. He said, I don't remember the guy's name, but he said, I need you to go minister to this community of cannibals. And he's like, all right, God, I'm going. So he went with his new married wife, who was like 2 months pregnant, and or whatever, and he was looking around for making sure like everything is safe, and all the locals, all the people that were there, were like peeking out from bushes and like looking for him, but they didn't come out and attack him. And so time moves on. The lady, his wife, gives birth, and unfortunately both mom and the baby did pass. So this guy's distraught, he's upset. God, you called me here, I've lost my wife, my daughter, and he's just distraught. And all of a sudden, one of the cannibals is brave enough to come and approach this missionary, and through somehow they were able to communicate, and they established a bond, a connection, and the guy obviously didn't need him, and they just started mentoring and working, and the guy got saved. And then that guy went to the community, and he obviously was a local, so he could talk to them, and he started sharing Christ with them and what Jesus did in his life, and it was like that ripple effect of like everybody started getting saved, and it was so cool to hear it.
Oh, yeah. A very similar story. Has everybody here seen The Point of the Spear?
End of the Spear?
Yeah, I heard about
End
it.
of the Spear.
End of the Spear, yeah.
I heard about it.
If you haven't, I have a copy of it.
Oh, Nate Saint and all
Nate Saint.
Yeah.
It's the story, everybody hears about Jim Elliot. It was the story of Nate Saint, whose wife also went in and lived among the Wahadani and raised her son among them, and he became good friends with and actually the person who murdered her husband, Nate Saint, became the first pastor of a Wahadani church.
Wow.
And Nate Saint brings him back to the United States to experience.
Oh, I remember that.
Going through the
story.
drive-through.
Yeah, going through the
McDonald's,
drive-through,
right?
and,
Yeah.
all
Took
that.
him into a grocery store.
Grocery store,
Yeah.
I remember, yeah.
Imagine that.
But yeah, and you know what? The first things the Wahadani did when they really embraced Christ, they said, you know, you've reached us. You think we're the most out there. There's tribes further into the jungle that have never met, that you don't even know exist. They've never been seen by a single representative of your culture. All the oil people that came through, they hide. They've never been found. We're going to go to them.
That's in that movie? Like,
Yeah.
End of the Spear.
I'd like
Yeah.
to see that.
It's been a while.
So that's the goal in all of that. And that's why I spend so much time teaching you these illustrations. It's not just to illustrate it to you.
That we can illustrate.
It's so that you have the tools to illustrate it to others. Now, eventually, the goal is, and I said, you know, a third of them came from the navigators, a third of them are modified ones from the, I have another third of the illustrations that I've come up with myself. But how did I do that? I learned the principle from those first third that here's what the navigator, oh, here's the principle that they're showing. Here's how they're using that to show this. Okay, now I can modify that a little bit to be appropriate to the people I'm going to. But once I understand the principle of how to modify theirs to reach the people I'm trying to reach, now I can begin to use those same principles to come up with my own. Do you see how that works?
Sure.
But if I just go, well, I'm just going to make up my own illustrations, it doesn't work. Because I have to learn those to understand the principles that I can then apply by modifying. Then I've reached the place where I'm competent to do that in a constructive way. But again, we want to jump right to here.
Yeah.
And I was talking with somebody today that's kind of, and they were like, well, you know, they had all kinds of excuses. But the bottom line is they never wanted to be mentored. They never wanted to commit to things like this or Tuesday night when they're sitting there and we're going through all this stuff, because this is the stuff where you're actually learning. The people that sat in there this morning didn't get this stuff to apply what was there to take it out there.
I agree.
This is that mentor relationship. And this is what Paul says, and you see that in Jesus. How would you divide up Jesus' ministry? Not chronologically, but his day-to-day ministry.
Like the sermon is to the crowd.
He would have a sermon to a big crowd.
And then he would explain it to the disciples later and teach them.
And then he sent them out, but then he would bring them back and be like, what did you learn? And let's break it down a little bit more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And isn't that exactly what we're doing right here?
Right.
Sermon, this, and that's why I ask you for questions, because those questions presuppose that you're going out and talking to other people and hearing them say, what about this? And going, oh, I don't have an answer to that.
I have it.
And here's the point where we can come back and discuss that.
Hey, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Based on the story that Jesus told, which I believe to be an actual story, because he mentioned Lazarus' name and the rich man, when Lazarus, I would think that as soon as you die, no matter where you're going one place or the other, but you wake up conscious, and I'm talking fully conscious, not like we are here blinded, but you're fully conscious, like the rich man, when he woke up, I would have said, if I wasn't in full conscious, get me out of here. He didn't say that. He said he lifted up his eyes, so I'm saying that's his consciousness, and he asked for, because he knew he wasn't going to get out of there, but he figured he could get a tip of water. Would you say?
I'm going to say one thing. We have a problem.